My husband was using our daughter's dance recital schedule to meet his mistress in the parking lot, but our daughter looked for him in the audience and found his empty seat and his full car and told me everything. My daughter came home from her spring recital and said, "Mommy, Daddy wasn't watching me dance. He was in the car with Miss Rochelle." She said it the way kids say things, flat, factual, like she was telling me what she had for lunch. No drama, no tears, just a 7-year-old delivering a sentence that split my life into two halves. My name is Brooke. I'm 35, married 9 years to a man named Colin who I genuinely believed was one of the good ones. We have one daughter, Ava, who's 7 and has been taking dance classes at Westfield Academy of Dance since she was 4. Ballet and jazz, Tuesday and Thursday evenings, 5:30 to 7:30. Colin was the one who took her. Every week. Without fail. He volunteered for it when we were dividing up parenting duties, and I thought it was the sweetest thing because most dads I know treat extracurriculars like a chore, and here was mine asking to be the one who drives her and sits through practice and cheers at recitals. I told my friends about it. I bragged about it. Colin takes Ava to dance every week. He's so involved. My friends would say, "You're so lucky," and I'd smile because I believed I was. I wasn't lucky. I was being played. And the stage wasn't the one Ava was dancing on. Here's what I didn't know. What I didn't know for almost a year. Colin wasn't sitting through practice. He was dropping Ava off at the studio door, watching her walk inside, and then going back to the parking lot. Because in that same parking lot, every Tuesday and Thursday at 5:30, another parent was also dropping off her daughter. Her name was Rochelle. She had a 6-year-old in the beginner ballet class one room over from Ava's. And somewhere between September and October of last year, Colin and Rochelle's drop-off times started overlapping, and their cars started parking next to each other, and their windows started rolling down, and whatever started as small talk in a parking lot became something that wasn't small talk at all. I didn't know any of this. I was home, making dinner, answering work emails, thinking my husband was sitting in a plastic chair watching our daughter do plies. That's the image I had in my head twice a week for nearly a year. Colin in the parent viewing area, maybe scrolling his phone, maybe chatting with other parents, but there, present, being the dad he signed up to be. That image was a lie. Every single pixel of it. The recital was the thing that broke the system because the recital was the one time Ava was on a stage looking out at the audience instead of being inside a studio where she couldn't see the seating area. She was performing. Her first real performance with a costume and stage lights and an audience full of parents with phone cameras. She'd been practicing for weeks. Nervous. Excited. She kept asking me, "Will Daddy be in the front row?" And I kept saying, "Of course he will, baby." And Colin kept saying, "Wouldn't miss it." Like clockwork. Like a man who had no intention of missing anything because he never planned to watch in the first place. The night of the recital, Colin drove Ava to the venue. I was going to meet them there because I had a work call that ran late. Colin texted me at 6:15, "We're here. Got seats in the third row. She's backstage getting ready. She looks adorable." I smiled at that text. I remember smiling. I was driving and I looked at my phone at a red light and I smiled because my husband was at our daughter's recital saving me a seat, and our little girl was backstage in a tutu, and everything felt like one of those moments you file under "This is why we do this." I arrived 20 minutes later. Found my seat. The one Colin saved. His jacket was on the chair next to mine, but Colin wasn't in it. I figured he was in the bathroom. Or getting water. The show started. Ava's group was third. I watched the first two groups and kept glancing at the empty seat next to me and the jacket draped over it, and I texted him, "Where are you? She's almost on." No response. Ava's group took the stage. 12 little girls in matching pink tutus. Ava was second from the left. She was smiling that huge nervous smile she does when she's trying to be brave. The music started and she danced and she was beautiful, and I was recording on my phone, and at one point she looked out at the audience and I could see her eyes scanning the rows looking for us, and she found me, and she smiled wider, but then her eyes kept moving, kept scanning, looking for the other face, the one that was supposed to be next to mine, and she didn't find it. I watched her face flicker. Just for a second. A tiny falter in the smile. Then she kept dancing because she's 7 and 7-year-olds are braver than anyone gives them credit for. But I saw it. That half second where my daughter realized her father wasn't watching. After her performance, Ava came running out from backstage. I hugged her and said she was amazing, and she said, "Where's Daddy?" I said, I think he went to the bathroom, sweetie. She said okay, but she didn't look convinced. I tried calling Colin. Straight to voicemail. Texted again. Nothing. The rest of the recital played out, and I sat there with his jacket on the empty chair getting more annoyed by the minute, thinking he'd stepped out for a call or something and lost track of time. When the recital ended, I took Ava's hand, and we walked out to the parking lot to find our car. Ava spotted it before I did. She's got sharp eyes, and she knows our car. Silver SUV. Parked in the back corner of the lot, further from the entrance than where you'd park if you were planning to come inside. Ava ran ahead of me. I was carrying her bag and her costume and walking slow. Then Ava stopped. Just stopped in the middle of the parking lot. Turned around and walked back to me and said the sentence that changed everything. Mommy, Daddy's in the car with Miss Rochelle. Miss Rochelle. She used the word Miss because that's what the dance moms call each other when their kids are around. Miss Rochelle. Miss Brooke. Miss whoever. Polite parking lot names for women whose daughters happen to take the same class. Ava knew Rochelle because she'd seen her at drop-offs, seen her talking to Daddy in the parking lot, and apparently had seen enough over the past several months that Daddy in the car with Miss Rochelle didn't even register as unusual to her. It was just a thing that happens. Daddy drops me off. Daddy sits in the car with Miss Rochelle. That was normal. The fact that it was normal to my 7-year-old told me everything about how long this had been going on. I didn't walk to the car. I stood there in the parking lot holding my daughter's dance bag, and I made a decision in about 4 seconds that most people take weeks to make. I was not going to confront him here. Not in front of Ava. Not in a parking lot full of dance parents. Not tonight. Tonight, I was going to take my daughter home, put her to bed, and then I was going to burn his world down on my schedule, not his. I called an Uber. Took Ava home. Colin came home 40 minutes later. Jacket in hand, the one from the chair. He said, Hey, sorry, I had to take a work call in the car and it went way longer than I expected. Did she do great? He said it so smoothly, so naturally, like a man who's rehearsed this kind of sentence 100 times because he has rehearsed it 100 times across 100 Tuesdays and Thursdays where he dropped his daughter off and disappeared into a parking lot with another woman. I said, She was wonderful. You missed a great show. Smiled. Went to bed. Didn't sleep. Stared at the ceiling until 3 a.m. while he snored next to me, and I planned. Update 1. The next morning I started digging. Not emotionally. Clinically. The way you approach a problem at work when the numbers don't add up and you need to find where the leak is. First, I checked his phone location history. Colin shares his location with me on Google Maps because we set it up years ago when I was pregnant and paranoid about emergencies, and we just never turned it off. One of those things married couples do and then forget about, because trust makes you lazy about verification. He clearly forgot it existed or assumed I never looked, because why would a wife who trusts her husband check his location on a Tuesday at 6 p.m. when she knows exactly where he is? At dance. With their daughter. Being a good dad. I scrolled back through months of Tuesdays and Thursdays, and what I saw made me sit down on the bathroom floor because my legs genuinely went weak. Every single dance class day, his location showed him at the studio for drop-off at 5:30, his blue dot right at the building entrance, and then within 3 to 4 minutes his dot would drift to the far end of the parking lot and just sit there. For almost 2 hours. Not inside the building. Not at a nearby store or restaurant where you'd go to kill time. In the parking lot. Stationary. For 2 hours. Every Tuesday. Every Thursday. Since October. Almost a full year of location data painting the same picture over and over. A man who parks at the back of a lot and doesn't move for 2 hours while his daughter dances 100 feet away without him. Then I went further back, and this is the part that made me physically nauseous. Before Ava did dance, she did swimming lessons on Saturdays at the community pool. I checked his location for those months. Same pattern. Drop off at the pool at 10 a.m. Then his dot moves across the street to the shopping center parking lot. 90 minutes. Every Saturday. Just sitting there. I checked even further back. Before swimming, there were tumbling classes at a gymnastics center. Same thing. Drop off. Parking lot. 90 minutes. Different address, but identical behavior. My husband had been using our daughter's extracurricular activities as a schedule for his affair for what looked like close to 2 years. Dance wasn't the beginning. Dance was just the latest venue. The latest parking lot. The latest 2-hour window where his wife didn't ask questions because she already had the answer. He's with Ava. At class. Being a dad. Except he wasn't being a dad. He was being a con artist who used his own daughter's childhood as an alibi, and I fell for it every single time, because I loved him, and love makes you believe the version of someone that they show you instead of the version they hide in parking lots. I found Rochelle on Instagram. Private account, but her profile photo was public, and the moment I saw it, something in my chest tightened like a fist closing. I recognized her. Dark hair, athletic build, big smile. She'd been at the studio holiday party last December. I have a group photo from that night. All the dance parents lined up in front of the Christmas tree the studio puts up every year, and she's in it, standing 3 people away from me, smiling at the camera, wearing a red sweater and earrings that caught the light. Her husband, Todd, was behind her in the photo with his hand on her shoulder, looking like every other tired dad at a kids' dance event. I'd stood next to this woman, made small talk with this woman, said things like, "Which class is your daughter in? And these recitals are getting longer every year," and laughed about parking and snack schedules, and the whole time she was sleeping with my husband in the parking lot I was complaining about. Rochelle is married to Todd. I found him on Facebook. Normal-looking guy. Works in commercial real estate. Posts about his family on weekends. Coaches his son's little league. Has one of those profile bios that says, "Family man." Coffee lover. Blessed. Blessed. His wife has been in my husband's car twice a week for a year, and this man's Facebook bio says blessed. He has no idea. No idea that the woman who packs his lunch and sleeps in his bed has been spending her Tuesday and Thursday evenings in the passenger seat of a silver SUV with a man named Colin while their daughters learn to dance in rooms 10 feet apart. I debated for 2 days about whether to contact Todd. Part of me thought it wasn't my place. Part of me thought I should just handle my own marriage and let Rochelle's lies be Rochelle's problem. But then I remembered what it felt like to not know. What it felt like to sit at home, making dinner, thinking my husband was being a good father while he was actually being the worst version of himself in a parking lot. Todd was living in that same lie right now, going to bed next to the same kind of stranger I was. And I thought, if our situations were reversed, I'd want to know. I'd want someone to tell me, even if it hurt, especially if it hurt. I messaged Todd, kept it simple. "Hi Todd, I think we need to talk about our spouses. Call me when you can. This is Brooke, Ava's mom from Westfield Dance." He called me within an hour. Update 2. Todd didn't know. The sound a man makes when his world is ending over the phone is something I never want to hear again. It's not crying exactly. It's more like the air leaving a room all at once. He went quiet for about 30 seconds after I told him. Then he said, "How long?" I said, "Close to a year from what I can tell." He said a word I won't repeat. Then he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to catch them. Together. On camera. And I want to do it on their schedule so they walk right into it." Todd said, "When's the next class?" I said, "Thursday. Here's what we did, and I'm not going to pretend this wasn't one of the most surreal experiences of my life, because it was." Thursday came. Colin did what Colin always does. What he'd been doing for almost 2 years across 3 different activities and God knows how many parking lots. He picked Ava up from school at 3:30, drove to the studio, dropped her at the door, watched her walk inside with her dance bag over her shoulder, and then instead of walking in behind her like every other parent in that building, he pulled his car to the back corner of the lot. Same spot. Same routine. Creatures of habit. Cheaters. They find a system that works, and they run it until someone breaks it. I was watching his location on my phone from Todd's car, which was parked across the street at a coffee shop with a clear sight line to the studio lot. Todd and I had gotten there at 5:15. He brought coffee. I couldn't drink mine. My hands weren't shaking, but my stomach was doing something that felt like falling even though I was sitting still. We didn't talk much. Just watched. 2 strangers sitting in a car, watching a parking lot like we were in some kind of low-budget detective movie, except there was nothing entertaining about any of it. At 5:38, Rochelle's car pulled into the lot. White sedan. She parked next to Colin's SUV the way she apparently always does. The way someone parks next to someone they're expecting, close enough that the doors almost touch. She sat in her car for about a minute. Checked her phone. Fixed her hair in the mirror. Then she got out of her car, walked around to the passenger side of Colin's SUV, opened the door, and got in. Casual. Practiced. Like getting into a car she'd been getting into twice a week for a year, because that's exactly what it was. Todd recorded everything on his phone. For minutes and 12 seconds of video. Her getting out of her car. Walking around. Getting in. The 2 of them visible through the windshield. talking, laughing, her hand on his arm, his hand on her knee. At one point she leaned in and said something close to his ear, and he laughed, and I watched from across the street thinking that laugh used to be mine. That closeness used to be mine. And he gave it away in a parking lot 50 yards from a building where our daughter was learning how to dance. Todd's hand was shaking while he recorded. Mine wasn't. I was past shaking. I was in the place that comes after the shaking stops, where everything gets very still and very clear, and you can see every move you need to make laid out in front of you like a highway, and you just need to drive straight. We didn't approach the car. Not yet. We had what we needed. Todd drove me back to my car at the coffee shop. We sat there for a minute. He looked at me and said, "Thank you for telling me. Most people wouldn't." I said, "You deserve to know." We both did. He nodded. We shook hands. Two strangers connected by the worst thing their spouses ever did, sitting in a coffee shop parking lot on a Thursday evening, while inside a studio down the street their daughters danced without knowing that the world their parents built was about to come apart. Update 3. Over the next few days, Ava started saying things. Not all at once. In pieces. The way children release information is like opening a faucet one drip at a time, because they don't know which drips matter and which don't. Daddy always parks far away from the door. Drip. Miss Rochelle's daughter tells me her mommy has a friend in the parking lot too. Drip. Sometimes Daddy smells different when he picks me up after class. Drip. And then the one that made me leave the room so she wouldn't see my face. One time I went to the parking lot because I forgot my water bottle and Daddy saw me, and he said, "Don't tell Mommy you came outside because it's not safe and I should stay inside." He saw his daughter in the parking lot with Rochelle in the car, and his first instinct wasn't shame or panic or an explanation. It was, "Don't tell Mommy." He made my 7-year-old a secret keeper. He looked at his own child and decided that her silence was more important than her understanding. He recruited a 7-year-old into his cover operation. And Ava, because she loves her daddy and trusts him completely, kept the secret. Until the recital broke the system open and her little mouth said what is wanted to keep shut. I called my lawyer the next morning. Showed her the location data, the video from Todd, the pattern across multiple activities. She said, "This is textbook. The use of the child's schedule as a systematic cover for the affair will be significant in custody proceedings." Custody. That word hit me harder than the affair itself. Because the affair was about Colin and me. But custody is about Ava. And the man who used her dance schedule to cheat, who parked in the back of the lot instead of sitting in the front row, who told his daughter to keep secrets from her mother. That man was about to learn that the schedule he abused was about to be used against him. Update 4. I filed for divorce on a Monday. Colin was served at his office, which I chose deliberately because I wanted the envelope handed to him at his desk, where his co-workers could see his face change and where he couldn't immediately come home and try to control the conversation. He called me 11 times that afternoon. I let them all go to voicemail because every unanswered ring was a tiny version of every Tuesday and Thursday he let our daughter dance without watching. I answered on the 12th because I'm not heartless, but I am strategic, and 12 felt like enough. He started with, "Brooke, this is insane. We can talk about this. We can go to counseling. I made a mistake." I let him finish. Then I said, "Colin, we are talking about it. Through lawyers. I have a year of location data showing you in parking lots during every one of Ava's activities. I have a 4-minute video of Rochelle getting into your car last Thursday. I have our daughter telling me you instructed her to keep a secret from me. This isn't a conversation about counseling. This is a conversation about custody." He went quiet. The dead kind of quiet. The kind where you can hear a man's brain running through every lie he's told in the last 2 years and realizing that not a single one of them is going to hold. The divorce proceedings were brutal in the way that divorces get brutal when one side has evidence and the other side has excuses. Colin's lawyer tried everything. It was a brief lapse in judgment. My lawyer showed the location data spanning almost 2 years. He's a devoted father who made a mistake. My lawyer presented Ava's statement about being told to keep a secret from her mother. The relationship was already struggling. My lawyer looked at the judge and said, "Your Honor, this isn't about a struggling marriage. This is about a father who systematically used his minor child's extracurricular schedule as an operational cover for an extramarital affair across 3 separate activities over approximately 22 months, and who, when discovered by his 7-year-old daughter, instructed that child to conceal the information from her mother. The judge's face when that sentence landed. I'll remember it forever. It was the face of someone who has heard a lot of bad things in family court and just heard something that still managed to be worse than expected. Colin got supervised visitation, not because he's violent or dangerous in the traditional sense, because he demonstrated a sustained pattern of using parenting access for personal deception and actively recruiting his minor child into that deception. The court doesn't look kindly on that. Shouldn't. Rochelle's marriage collapsed faster than mine. Todd filed within a week of our parking lot stakeout. He was angrier than me, louder about it, less surgical, but just as effective. Rochelle tried to deny it. Todd showed her the video. Her own face through the windshield of my husband's car. She couldn't deny a 4-minute movie starring herself. Last I heard, she moved in with her sister. Todd has primary custody of their daughter. And the dance studio parking lot that hosted a year of secret meetings is now just a parking lot again. Just asphalt and painted lines and parents coming and going with kids in tutus who have no idea what used to happen in the back corner between 5:30 and 7:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Update 5. Ava got quiet for a while after the divorce. Not the regular quiet of a kid who's adjusting. A different quiet. Heavy. She stopped asking about dance. Stopped practicing in the living room, which she used to do every evening, spinning around in her socks on the hardwood floor while I pretended not to watch from the kitchen. She stopped wearing the little ballet bun she'd been doing her own hair in since she was 5. Stopped asking when the next recital was. It was like watching someone slowly set down something they love because they've convinced themselves it's the thing that hurt them. One night about 6 weeks after Colin moved out, I found her sitting on her bed, cross-legged, her ballet shoes in her lap. Not wearing them, just holding them, running her thumb across the satin like she was saying goodbye to something. I sat next to her, didn't say anything at first, just sat there the way I've learned to sit with her, present but not pressing, because 7-year-olds talk when they're ready and not a second before. After about 2 minutes, she said something that broke me in a way the affair itself never could, in a way the location data never could, in a way the video and the divorce papers and the empty seat never could. She looked at her ballet shoes and said, very quietly, almost in a whisper, "If I didn't do dance, would Daddy still live here?" 7 years old. And she thought her ballet class caused her parents' divorce. She thought that if she'd never begged us to sign her up, if she'd never put on those pink shoes, if she'd never walked into that studio and fallen in love with dancing, her family would still be together. Because in her timeline, dance is where everything went wrong. Dance is where Daddy stopped watching. Dance is where the lady in the parking lot showed up. Dance is where the secret started that ended with Daddy moving to an apartment with a couch that smells different and walls that don't have her drawings on them. And in her 7-year-old logic, clear and terrible and completely wrong. If you take away the dance, you take away the destruction. I held her, pulled her into my chest, and held her so tight that she probably couldn't breathe for a second, but I didn't care because I needed her to feel held the way I wished someone had held me when I found out. And I said, "Listen to me, Ava. Listen carefully. None of this is because of you. Not your dance. Not your recital. Not your shoes. Not anything you did or said or didn't do. You are the best thing in this entire story. The absolute best thing. And dance is yours. It belongs to you. Nobody gets to take it from you. Not Daddy. Not the divorce. Not any of this. You dance because you love it. You dance because you're beautiful when you do it. And I will be in that front row every single time. Every class. Every recital. Every practice. Me. Right there. Watching. Always." She cried into my shirt. I cried into her hair. And we sat there on her bed with her ballet shoes between us and the sound of a quiet house around us. And I made a promise to myself that I would spend the rest of my life making sure this girl knows that she is not a schedule. She is not a cover story. She is not a casualty. She is not collateral. She is a dancer. And she's mine. 3 months later, Ava went back to dance. Different studio. Fresh start. New teacher who doesn't know our history and doesn't need to. I drive her now. Every class. And I don't sit in the parking lot. I sit in the front row of the parent viewing area with my phone out recording every ply and every turn, and every time she looks through the glass to check if I'm watching, I hold up my hand and wave, because I am watching. I am always watching. That's what parents do. They show up. They sit in the chair. They watch. And they stay. Colin texts her on weekends now. She responds sometimes. Short messages. Good and fine, And yeah, the vocabulary of a child who loves her father but doesn't trust him yet. Maybe she will someday. That's between them. My job isn't to fix their relationship. My job is to make sure she knows that the chair next to the stage will never be empty again. As for me, I'm doing okay. Some days better than okay. Some days I wake up at 5 a.m. and go for a run before Ava's alarm goes off, and I feel the air in my lungs and the pavement under my feet, and I think, I'm still here. I'm still standing. I'm still the parent who shows up. I got a promotion at work 3 months after the divorce because it turns out that the focus and discipline it takes to dismantle a cheating husband's life translates pretty well into corporate project management. Bought new furniture for the living room because the couch we used to share felt like sitting on a lie. Repainted Ava's room lavender because she asked, and because I can do things now without running them through a man who was never fully present anyway. I'm not dating. Not interested. Not yet. Maybe someday. But right now the only hands I want to hold are the small ones that grab mine in the parking lot and pull me toward the studio door saying, "Come on, mommy, we're going to be late." And we go inside. Together. Every single time. I hold the door. She runs in. I sit down in the front row. She looks through the glass to check if I'm there. I wave. She waves back. And then she dances. That's enough. For right now, that's everything. Edit. This blew up. To answer the common questions. Yes, I'm in therapy, and yes, Ava is too. No, I won't name the studio. Yes, Colin knows about this post. No, I don't care. And to the woman who DM'd me saying, maybe he was lonely and you should have been more attentive. My husband was in a parking lot with another woman while our daughter performed on stage looking for his face. Loneliness doesn't park in the back of a lot. Choices do. If you connected with this one, hit like and subscribe. Share it with a parent who shows up, who sits in the chair, who watches. They don't hear it enough. See you in the next one.